Hey, this is Kimberly, and this is the Mommy Project. Thank you so much for joining me this week on episode 87, I believe. I cannot believe that we are already several weeks into this new season, and I'm completely enjoying interacting with you on social media. This is an interactive podcast, meaning that each week I ask the audience a question. I leave the episode with a question, just kind of to start engaging in conversation amongst mamas, other mamas, and women in general. And so this week, I'm going to be talking about something that has been affecting me for the last, several months. And it is the phenomenon that we know as nesting. Especially a lot of people think of it in terms of pregnancy and the last trimester of pregnancy. And, they kind of envision this caricature of a woman at, big belly, 38 weeks pregnant, scrubbing floors and dusting the baseboards and just kind of basically driving the rest of her family bonkers with her need to vigorously clean her house and prepare. But so I am going to be talking a little bit about that. However, I wanted to share with you some of the things that I've been experiencing with nesting and then kind of broaden that term a little bit because I feel like, again, most of us consider this to be something that's just pregnancy related. And I would beg to say that that is a little bit incorrect. And so anyway, that's what we're going to be talking about on this episode. First of all, thank you again for listening. And if you're watching, I'm excited to have you here on the YouTube channel. So I want to kind of explain what do I mean by nesting. And so nesting, the way that I would describe it is nesting is this like obsessive need to house clean, this almost animalistic vigor to get your environment prepared or in order, to have everything established or in its own proper place before this new transition of life happens, or maybe while you are in that transition of life. And so that's how I would describe that that nesting experience, that feeling of almost like you're being taken over, compulsively needing to reorganize or get all the things on your checklist completed before this big event happens, or maybe after this big transition has occurred. And so the reason why I wanted to talk about it is, number one, I have been experiencing this. I feel like when I'm pregnant with a boy, I've been pregnant with my daughter, was our oldest. And so with her, and I'll kind of go into that in a little bit, about how I've experienced this nesting phenomenon or psychological mindset or whatever you want to call it. I've experienced it a lot differently with each one of my pregnancies, and I'll go into that in a little bit. But the reason why it's been on my mind is because I'm kind of in the middle of it. We are 2 weeks, or we're pretty much ending. We're looking at the finish line of this pregnancy, and so as I have gotten closer and closer, on one hand, I'm excited and I'm ready for it to be over. I'm ready to move on to the next season, which is the postpartum season, which is probably the worst. You get to meet your baby and all this, but let's face it, postpartum, weight loss postpartum, body image postpartum, mindset, all the emotions, the hormones, the sleepless nights, all of it is just a crapshoot. But when you've been pregnant for, it feels like a million years, you kind of are like, all right, I'm ready for us to move on to a new thing. And so as I've gotten closer to the finish line, if you will, or his birthday, I on one hand, I'm excited and I'm ready. And on the other hand, I continue to have this anxiety of, oh my gosh, we have nothing. We are not prepared at all whatsoever for this baby. We've got to get this and we've got to get that. And it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming mentally, emotionally, financially, all the things. And so I think that is part of that nesting instinctive feeling that women go through. And I think men do too as well on their own level, but I can't speak for a man. But anyway, nesting can be, it doesn't have to be just something that happens during pregnancy, especially towards the end of pregnancy. It can be at any point in your life where you are either in transition, you're about to be in transition. Maybe you've experienced this, you kind of know what I'm talking about whenever you've gone through a really bad breakup, or you've had a really tough time with a particular friendship that you're in or relationship. A death of, a loved one has just passed, or you start a new job, or your baby is just about to graduate college, or about to actually go to college. Any of those things, you can kind of experience this phenomenon called nesting. And what it is, again, everybody's different, but what it is it's like this need to control our environment. There's a lot of experts and a lot of really cool science out there about it, but it kind of stems from two different things. It stems from us wanting to have control over our environment. And so if we can control, let's say, our immediate home life environment, we rearrange the furniture, we repaint the walls, we redecorate, we rearrange the bed, we organize everything, we clean everything, we scrub it, we scour it, we prepare it. On the outside, it's almost this illusion that we are preparing. We're getting prepared for something that we actually can't prepare for, which is this new transition and how it's going to react and how it's going to affect our family or affect ourselves, And so, anyway, I was just thinking that is something that is interesting, because whenever I have dealt with, and I've struggled with anxiety at different levels throughout my entire life, although I don't think that I understood really what it was or could really pinpoint, okay, this is anxiety that I'm feeling. I didn't really understand any of that or could put a name to it until I became a mom. And so whenever I'm feeling really anxious, I can become like a Monica Geller and just clean, and just reorganize and want to control, the immediate environment. Not necessarily people in the environment always, because I understand that I can't do that and I don't really want that job, but I can make sure that the dishes are all clean, or the floors are all swept and scrubbed, and the baseboards and the cabinets are top notch. And so, it's this illusion that we buy into that if we can control our environment, we can control the external situation that is actually occurring. And again, I say it's an illusion because obviously we can't, And so there's different ways that people experience it. Maybe you've gone, the Marie Kondo route, and you just like, oh, all of a sudden you have this urge, and it's almost uncontrollable. You have to do it right now. It's not something that you do, okay, I'm gonna rearrange the closets next weekend when it's raining. It's not something like that. That's kind of like a goal, or at least that's how I would term it. That's a goal that you might have. Nesting is like you do it at midnight. You have to do it. You get out of your bed because it's almost compulsive. And maybe you have experienced that with wanting to get rid of all the toys that your kids don't play with anymore, or getting rid of all the books that you haven't read, or the clothes, or, you clean out the closet, you rearrange the garage, you get your finances in order, you all of a sudden feel like you have to have a big garage sale. You unsubscribe to all of the streaming devices because you're like, oh, I'm in a financial crunch. I've got to do something, and I got to do something right this second. It's that thing that just propels you to control something, or feel like you can control it, when maybe chaos is really going on in your world. A lot of times we think, okay, whenever what does a woman usually do? And I know this might be a sexist thing, but again, I'm only speaking from a woman's perspective. But what do you normally see whenever a woman just goes through a breakup? Whether it's divorce or it's a casual relationship or whatever, one of the things that you see is that she rearranges or she cuts her hair. And it's almost like if we can rearrange ourselves or our environment, we can rearrange our life. That's kind of the illusion, or the false perspective that we buy into. And on some level, it does make us feel like we're in more control. I know that when my house is in chaos, meaning there's toys everywhere, food that has been spilled on the floor and it hasn't been cleaned up yet, the baby has got a dirty diaper, just people are screaming all over the place, I feel chaos in my soul. Like, I just feel like, oh my gosh, I got to do something right now. And it's either walk out the door and leave and go for a walk and have some space, or it's get busy and start cleaning up and start just like telling everybody, all right, you got 5 minutes to pick up or else everything's going in the trash bag. And believe me, sometimes that's not nesting, that's just parenting. But so nesting is about control and how we want to deal with that. So if we rearrange our environment, we feel more prepared for the actual thing that we can't prepare for, which is, like when you're pregnant, it's a baby. Logically, there's nothing you can prepare for when you have a baby come into your home. You cannot prepare yourself for the endless sleepless nights. You cannot truly prepare for how you're going to feel in that transitional period towards being, this new role as being a mom, or being a mom of multiples or whatever. You cannot control that. You cannot control whenever you take a new job and it seems like it's going to be awesome, and maybe it is, but maybe it's not everything that you wanted it to be. You cannot control that outcome. And so we try to control our environment. Another thing that nesting does is it's about stress and how we deal with stress. And I read that somewhere, like, a rearranged space can equate to a rearranged life, which is, that's not really true, but that's why we have this need to kind of rearrange our spatial environment a lot. But stress is another thing that we have. I'm flipping my notes over. But nesting comes from the stress that we feel. And so I can look back at times when I was really stressed out and I didn't really even know it. Like, I wasn't self-aware enough, or self-educated, I guess. That sounds really dumb and millennial, but or self-involved. But I wasn't aware enough to understand, okay, what I'm feeling right now is stress, and the reason why I'm reacting this way is because I'm walking through transition, I'm walking through change, and I don't know how to handle it. And so one of the ways that I remember this happening is when me and my husband, we were first married, and we had an empty house basically. I mean, we had furniture and we had a bed and, we had TV, but we had nothing hung on the walls. No real upkeep, really. I mean, we no decorations at all, and nobody there to mess it up. We didn't have pets. We didn't have children yet, and I would obsessively clean the bathrooms, the floors. I was actually also going through grad school, so that was also a way for me to decompress after a long bout of studying or being on the computer or writing, anything like that. I would literally, like Monica Geller, just obsessively clean the kitchen. And there was nothing really to clean. I mean, because it was just me and him, and we're not messy people. And he would call me like Cinderella, or kind of joke around and be like, "Oh, there you go, doing your Cinderella thing, furiously sweeping the floors and mopping and wiping the counters." And again, I was going through transition. It wasn't a bad transition, but I was wrapping up grad school. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, what the next step was for me as far as my career. And we had just gotten married. So we were newlyweds. We were trying to figure out, married life. And we were a little older. So, I mean, I don't think it was as much of a transition as say if I had gotten, we had gotten married when we were a lot younger. But still, I mean, that's something that happens. And I'm just curious, like, when have there been other times where you felt this urge, this obsessive animalistic need to rearrange your space, your environment, as a way or as a means to kind of control or decompress what you're going through on the outside that you can't really control? Obviously the way that you experience nesting can also depend on your personality. I don't know enough about the Enneagram or the Myers-Briggs or what all the other personality types are out there, and brands and things like that. I don't know enough about them to speak about it. But I'm sure that personality, culture plays a big part in how you go about this ritual. And I mean, I think it's also a ritual. I mean, I think especially during pregnancy, it's part of it. It's like, okay, I'm really feeling this urge to rearrange the closets and clean and wash all the clothes in the entire house, even though we haven't worn them in several months, or it's wintertime and I need to clean out and wash all the summer clothes because I know the baby's going to be, needing those clothes in the summer. And it's almost insane, the things that we do, but it's part of it. And we know, okay, this is a sign that I'm coming closer to the end. It doesn't mean that labor is going to happen tomorrow. I hate to tell you that. If you're listening and you're pregnant, or you're right along along the lines of where I'm at in pregnancy, just because you want to paint all the kitchen cabinets a different color doesn't mean that your baby's coming tomorrow. And I'll get to that in a minute, as far as how I manifested nesting in my pregnancies. But it is about stress. It is about control. And whether you understand all the details of how you're feeling stressed in your pregnancy or a transition that you're going through, that is one way that it can manifest itself. And then personality, the extent of it, your culture, all that can play a role as well. And I think that's really interesting. It's something that has fascinated me for a while, because this is my fourth pregnancy. And like I said, I've experienced nesting differently with each pregnancy. With Evie, my daughter, the main thing that stands out to me is when I was 8 months pregnant, I decided that I needed to have a flower bed right outside me and my husband's bedroom. We had, again, our inside was just as bare as our outside. We had one flower bed in the front, and that was it. We didn't have anything else. And so I decided I had to have a flower bed, and I had to have roses grow up so I could see them in the window, because I knew I'd probably be in the bedroom a lot, especially at first with breastfeeding or, nursing. And so I just envisioned this beautiful flower bed. So 8 months pregnant, big pregnant, I recruit my mom and my grandfather, a little bit of my grandfather. We dug out all the grass. We hauled sod off. We hauled dirt in. We planted a baby pomegranate tree that is now huge. We planted rose bushes, irises, all these different things. And I did that at 8.5 months pregnant. I remember digging like with a big shovel, and doing having a wheelbarrow full of dirt. I remember working and looking down at my watch and thinking, oh my God, I got to get ready for my baby shower, and having to go and stop and go clean up before my baby shower. And so that's one, and it's, to me, nesting doesn't have to be just, like you said, cleaning your house. It could be something huge that you've maybe been wanting, and all of a sudden you just have all this energy to do it. And that's where I think there's a positive, is stress and control can make it seem like nesting is a negative thing. It's like a negative compensation for this thing that's going on in your life. But it also, science has proven that just rearranging your bed, taking your bed from one location of your bedroom to another, can create energy, can make you feel different. It can promote a sense of well-being. And so something real simple like that, or something big and a hard, like a lot of manual labor, like creating a flower bed right outside your bedroom window, is one way that I've experienced nesting. Another way, and I feel like this is very, very particular when I've had boys, because I did not do this at all with Evie, but this is my third boy, and I have had the need to decorate a lot, especially with Maverick. He's my oldest boy, and with him, we went from having nothing on our walls in our home, like no pictures, no holes, no nothing. It was completely bare. The same old curtains that I had bought cheaply at Pier 1 as a broke honeymooner, they were still hanging there. And by the time that he arrived, I feel like I had bought out Paul Michaels. I had created a mess of decorations, so much so that me and my husband decided we now have three chalkboard walls in our home, because chalkboard paint covers up a lot of mistakes that you don't really have to patch because the paint's so dark and it's so thick. And so if you come into my home and you see the chalkboard walls, you know that there's a lot of holes behind it. We also have a wood wall that covers up a lot of my rearranging pictures and mistakes that I made during pregnancy with Maverick. I decided that I had to decorate my office at the job that I worked at. It was originally like just school, bland beige, nothing special. And I painted a chalkboard wall in there. I did this bright turquoise, blue, green. I hung twinkle lights and streamers, and literally created something out of a blank slate. Everything was a canvas when I was pregnant with Maverick. Everything. I just had to create. Was it any good? Some of it was good. Some of it turned out well. Most of it was a big fat mess. we had to fix. But that's one way that nesting has affected me personally, is building flower beds, completely redecorating, repainting everything. With Wyatt, I think that it took this nesting instinct took a little bit of a different turn. I started to feel like I was really apprehensive. Something bad was going to happen to me. My kids were going to grow up without me. I had no voice. I had no meaning. I don't know who I am, my identity. I was having just one big old identity crisis, I think. And what came out of that was the podcast. I decided that I had to do something. And so 3 weeks before he was born, which he was born early, so I didn't really experience the full-on, like, hardcore last-minute nesting that I did with the others because he came so early. And I'm a surprise. He was a surprise. Well, he just came early, and I was surprised. But yeah, 3 weeks before he was born, we started this podcast. And I mean, we didn't know anything about it, and we just like, I'm going to do it. And we launched it that day. We got a website going. I still struggle with learning how to do the editing stuff, all the things. But again, that is that compulsion, that need to do something bigger or to kind of control my environment, even if it was my mental or emotional environment. That's how it manifested in Wyatt's pregnancy. And then with this one, it's been a little bit more traditional. I've recovered some chairs that the kids messed up. I've cleaned a lot. I've reorganized a lot. I've repainted their table and chairs. I mean, I'm a homeschool mom, and they're with me all the time. So a lot of that energy that I probably would have put towards redecorating the house has been soaked up with just being with them all the time. And we're already doing a little bit of schooling in July because I know that when the baby comes, we're going to have to take a break. But so nesting for me during this pregnancy has been a lot more traditional, what you think, kind of the stereotypical cleaning the house, rearranging the closets, washing, a lot of washing, and a lot of freaking out. And I know I said earlier in this episode that the closer I get to my due date, the more I feel like I'm not prepared. I don't have anything. And my husband's like, listen, this is your fourth pregnancy and not a lot of years. I mean, it's not been a long time since I've had an infant in the house. And so he's like, we got this. We can do this. And I think Pinterest and Instagram and social media can really heighten that anxiety. So I would kind of caution you if you're struggling with that a little bit of, you don't need everything that you think you do. Also, because this is my fourth, I understand a lot more that no matter how much you prepare, no matter how many meals you freeze, no matter how much you stock that pantry or you clean those, the fans and dust and all the things, it's still not going to prepare you for what's really going to happen. And I think that because of that knowledge, I've been able to slow my roll a little bit, and just not wear myself out, not create so much. By doing so much, I'm also creating more anxiety, and I have to do more, and I have to do more. I've tried to be a little bit more grounded with this pregnancy, and maybe make a list. Today I'm just going to work on stripping the beds and doing laundry, or I'm just going to clean the fans this week. Something that to me is a chore that I've hated, or I've been putting it off for whatever reason, and I'm ready to tackle it. That's kind of how nesting has affected me a little bit. But again, we know this, that nothing can really prepare you for a new baby. Nothing can prepare you for a breakup or a change in your life. We can rearrange our furniture. We can cut our hair. We can reorganize our finances, get everything in order, which is all good. It's not bad. But ultimately, recognizing that it's about our need to control something that we really can't, or it's a way that we are physically manifesting a stress that we feel in our bodies. Just understanding that can put things in perspective as well, and be like, oh, no, I'm not just going crazy, or I'm not just a stereotype, or I'm not just deliberately trying to ruin myself financially by wanting to redecorate the entire house. It helps by having that clarity. So I wanted to know, like, what was some of the craziest things that y'all have done during your pregnancy and the nesting? I mean, did you clean the baseboards? Did you go out and have lots of, I was going to say wild nights with your friends, but wild night when you're pregnant is, it's not really that wild. Did you do something crazy during your pregnancy that kind of, now looking back, it's like, yeah, okay, that was me just trying to control something that I knew that I couldn't control, like my body. My body is growing literally, and so therefore, I did this or I did that. What was the craziest thing that you did? I would love to know on social media. You can find me on Instagram at the Mommy Pro. You can find me on YouTube. My channel is the Mommy Pro, and so www.youtube.com/themommypro. You can find me on my website, and that's where you can listen or you can watch this episode. And I would love to hear from you. I just want you to know you're doing really good. If you're going through this phase of life right now and you're not pregnant, it's the same thing. It's the nesting thing. It's this urge to try to control or to prepare or to de-stress about something that is really stressful in your life, or a change in your life. And that's normal. You're in a normal place. You're doing a normal thing. Just kind of roll with it. Keep some perspective, and I would love to hear all your stories. You're doing a great job, Mama. And I'm so glad that you stayed with me this week on episode 87. Y'all have a great week. Thanks.